Ladies and gentlemen, I am recording this moments after day one of Norway chess has finished, okay? Wow, are there some incredible games to show you today. I mean, we have Fabiano Caruana going up against Hikaru Nakamura, and we had the reigning world champion Gukesh against the world number one Magnus Carlsen. The most anticipated game in all of chess, and it is game of the year so far. I cannot wait to show you these games. But just take a look on your screen right now. Here are the standings after day one. So Magnus and Hikaru both pick up a win. The old guys, they're still doing it. Arjun and Wei Yi picked up a draw. It went to Armageddon. Not going to show you that game because it kind of dragged. There wasn't anything too exciting. And the other two games, guys, please stick around to watch them both. Gukesh, Fabiano, not the start they would have been looking for. Both start off with a loss, but Magnus and Hikaru, they're going to be absolutely over the moon with that. Both picking up a win on day one, both starting out strong. You just couldn't ask for a better start. Firstly, we're going to jump straight into Magnus Carlsen versus Gukesh. If you do enjoy this video, guys, be sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. Let's jump straight into Magnus versus Gukesh. Okay guys, so as you can see on your screens, Magnus Carlsen did in fact beat Gukesh. Oh my god, it was such a phenomenal game. It was even the whole way until the end game, which we're going to jump to very, very shortly. But it comes down to a time scramble, guys, and Magnus finds every single perfect move with about 5 seconds on his clock. It's the most exciting thing you're going to see all day, okay? But let's go through the opening. So it starts d4, knight f6, knight c3, and then d5. So this is a very, very common queen's pawn opening, just developing your knights. Bishop f4, so going for like this sort of London setup, it almost looks like. c5 is played, striking in the centre immediately from Gukesh. And then e3 just reinforces. Bishop g4, putting pressure on the queen. And David Howe on commentary was actually saying the whole way that f3 was the most sort of accepted move in this position. It's just a way of kicking the bishop back to, say, I don't know, d7 maybe, and then you continue your development, maybe even taking the centre like this. But Magnus decides, actually, I'm not going to play that, and plays bishop e2. There's something called a confession booth in these tournaments, guys, where the players can go and talk about the position, talk about how they're feeling. In this position, Magnus said that he felt like he played really cowardly with bishop e2 and made this trade. He said it was sort of, I don't know, very reluctant, very hesitant. He said he was playing a bit cowardly. I mean, that's the world champion. That's not me saying that. I absolutely idolise the man. I wouldn't dare. Rook comes over to the centre, queen to a5, maybe hitting the pawn, but a3 is played to obviously protect. Rook f to d8, just bringing the rook over to the centre, and then h4. I mean, it's just like perfect play every single move. It's absolutely ridiculous. We get queen a4. I couldn't tell you the idea behind this move. I literally have no idea why it's on this diagonal. To a player like me, such a nuanced subtlety, I'm never going to understand it. Knight jumps into the centre, we get a trade in the middle of the board, knight d7 hits the bishop, so bishop backs off to f4, we get queen a6, queen f3, bishop d6, and instead of taking the bishop in a trade that goes somewhat like this, Magnus actually opts to play knight h5, so if bishop takes he can take back with the knight. Takes back with the queen anyway. Strikes open in the centre from Gukesh with e5. Queen goes back, offers a queen trade, and we get the queen trade, guys. So in this position, right, when you see a queen trade, you just sort of automatically allude to the fact that it's likely going to be a draw. So I'm watching with like half an eye at this point thinking, right, well, the game's going to peter out into a draw. It's the first round, guys. You can't expect anything crazy from them. But my word, does it get crazy. And sorry if I'm just flying through this. I know I'm not giving this much analysis yet. I'm just trying to get to the juicy bit as quickly as possible because I really want to share it with you guys. Knight g3, and then we get a trade of pawns in the centre, and then Gukesh pushes the pawn to c4. Knight reroutes back. b5 is played, knight c3, knight f6, bishop b1. I need to go to sleep, clearly. Rook b1, rook comes to the b file, f3. I mean, Magnus still hasn't castled. It's absolutely insane, this position. A push of the pawns, And then en passant, Gukesh, a man of culture, obviously knows that en passant is mandatory. It's legally binding. Recaptures with the rook, takes with the rook. Important to note that you probably don't want to be taking like this if you're Gukesh, because after a move like, I guess, knight a2, well, then there's a lot of pressure on this pawn. And you just have to sort of play like this. And if you were to take, well, there's rook a1 check and you lose a rook. But there's a lot of intricacy in a lot of these lines. It's also, you know, the players don't have the eval bar, so they literally have no idea what's going on. Gives a check, picks up the pawn, trade of pawns, rook f1 to reinforce the pawn on f3, trade of pawns. And from this point onwards, I mean, look at the time. They both have about 8.5 minutes. So it's getting sort of very scary. We get a rook trade. And again, guys, in this position, where everyone watching thinks this is just going to peter out to a draw. Okay, so king moves over. We get e4 striking in the centre. Now, when I saw this played, I thought maybe sort of like rook g3 would be an option. Why is this not an option? Okay, well, it is an option. It's absolutely fine. And it wants like e5 kicking the knight. Can you give this check first? And then I guess you have to play like king d2. And then where does... Oh, it actually wants rook f2 here. Okay, or like knight g4, putting pressure. But yeah, okay, so that was a bit of self-analysis. I just wanted to see if rook g3 was a move. But takes. Guys, this is where it gets absolutely insane. Gukesh for about 3 minutes was looking at this position and wondering whether to play h4 or whether to give a check on g3 or whether to play like knight g4. Gukesh opted for h4, and this is the start of something absolutely historic. This is iconic, guys. Magnus plays e5 hitting the knight. Gukesh, I want you to look at your screen, has 2 minutes 48 on his clock. Instead of moving this knight to, say, maybe d7, Gukesh plays h3. And if you take this knight, Gukesh plays h2. This is the position we reach. Gukesh gambits a knight because he's pushing his pawn the whole way. f7's played. g3 check, rook g3 check. Queen h1. There's a queen on the board. Magnus has to make a queen. Gukesh 23 seconds on his board. He has to check with the rook, forcing the king up, okay? Or you could also block with the knight. But if you give a check with your queen, Magnus can get his king over here and run it this way. And it's Gukesh in a lot of trouble. Gukesh gives this check h6. Oh my god! Magnus has to find king c2. And of course he does. Of course he finds king c2. Of course he does. Gukesh gives another check. King b2. Queen b6 check. Only move here, king a2 or king a1. Obviously, if you play here, you lose a knight with check, and it's mate in 2. If you play, like, I don't know, king a2. But if you play king a4, it's still, there's going to be check soon. Have to find king a2 or king a1. Magnus finds king a2. Of course he does. Rook g2 check. King a3. The king is running up to safety. Check. King a4. Takes the knight. It's a huge mistake. But Magnus Carlsen, with only 30 seconds on his clock, has to find a queen check on h8. And he does. The king runs to g6. Oh my god. Rook a6 check. Look at Magnus's clock. 14 seconds. Gukesh runs his king over to f5. Oh my god. Queen f8 check. e4. And in this position, there is only one move. There is only one move, guys. And you might be thinking, well, you can give this check with a queen. If you give this check, you're completely thrown away all advantage. Because after king takes on d4, any checks now can be blocked. Okay? And you can also give your own check. It's just insane. It's insane. And if anything, it's Gukesh. Obviously not going this way, sorry. It's Gukesh with a pawn on the board. I don't know why my arrows aren't working. It's Gukesh with a pawn on the board. So Magnus Carlsen has to find the only check. Rook to e6. In this position, Gukesh resigned. Magnus Carlsen found the perfect move every single time with like 20 seconds on his clock. I mean, this is why he's the GOAT. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. And for those of you that are wondering, if you were to play like King D5 here, well, there's this absolutely horrific line of Queen F5. King sort of has to go this way. And then you go like Queen B5 check. King goes here. Queen to D7. Not Queen D7. Yeah, Queen D7 check, sorry. King C5. And then this is in fact checkmate, because King blocks these squares. Rook obviously here and Queen here. So Gukesh resigns. Absolutely phenomenal game out of Magnus Carlsen. Absolutely phenomenal. But guys, we're going to jump now into Hikaru Nakamura versus Fabiano Caruana. Okay guys, so as you can see on your screens, Fabiano Caruana with the white pieces, Hikaru with the black pieces. Hikaru played with 98 accuracy, Fabiano with 91.2. I didn't actually catch the end of this game because they were showing the time scramble between Magnus and Gukesh, so I'm sort of going to be watching this with you guys. So I'm actually very excited to see how this game goes. But we get D4, D5, and then C4, which is obviously the Queen's Gambit. Hikaru plays C6, which is a Slav defense. And Hikaru said in the confession booth that there was actually a little bit of drama where Hikaru played this in round 3 against somebody at the Candidates one year. And Fabiano said that Hikaru, it felt like he wasn't really taking this tournament seriously because he was playing the Slav. And in this game, they reach a very similar position. So it's very interesting that Fabiano sort of held that opinion. And then goes into a very similar line in round 1 of Norway chess. Very, very interesting. I recommend you guys check out the clip of Hikaru in the confession booth. He's always hilarious in there. But yeah, we get this sort of like London setup from Fabiano, but you just obviously can't play c3 now because your knight's there after the Queen's Gambit. But yeah, it's a Slav exchange position. H3, so we get an exchange here, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, the Slav is always a draw at the top level, like always a draw, and I'm not just like saying that, the Slav is always a draw. So for us to get any sort of excitement from this game is absolutely mind-blowing. It's a lot of early trades, and Hikaru was saying that unless he sort of forgets a move order or Fabiano sort of tries to confuse him, it's just going to be a very easy win for Fabiano. No, not what am I talking about? It's going to be a very easy draw for them both to make. In this Slav defense, which it normally always is. Pawn kicks the knight back to a4, again kicking the knight, so it goes back to c3. Knight a7, queen e2, queen to d7, b3, rook c6, so it's just very sort of minor adjustments. There's a lot going on this c3 square, a lot of pressure on it. h4, king to g7, g3, rook c7, okay. So as you can see, it's all a lot of just minor pieces, minor subtleties in piece manoeuvring, and we get a lot of trades on around move 33. And at this point, everyone is just sort of thinking it's a draw, especially after the queens come off the board. Very similar in that sense to Magnus and Gukesh, where the queens come off the board, and it's sort of like, right, the commentators are going to swap to a different game now because there's more exciting positions and this is just going to be a draw. Oh, how wrong were they? Oh, how wrong were they indeed. F5, F3, G5, pawn breaks central. Notice Hikaru has the 2 knights, which when there's loads of little gaps and stuff, I'm not sure why I highlighted A2, but you can see there's loads of little gaps forming in the position with these pawns, leaving loads of spaces for knights to jump into. Like b4, which Hikaru has just played here. King goes to e2, so the 2 knights can be very advantageous. I know bishops are widely regarded as better in Super GM sort of level, but I mean the knights are very, very tricky pieces, and I mean look at this like e4 outpost for the knight at some point. I mean it's going to be glorious. So the knight's just hopping about, not really doing anything. I mean it just looks like it's going to be a draw. And I'm actually very curious to see where Fabiano loses all his advantage. Knight g7, knight a4. Why is... Okay, I guess because of knight e4? Yeah, okay, so Hikaru finds knight e4. And then when we get this trade, this is absolutely losing. Knight c3 is played. Knight's jumping forward. Oh yeah, the knight is going to be gobbling on these. When the king eventually marches its way forwards, the knight can just start picking up these pawns now. Wow. Oh my god, and in this position, just resigns. Oh my god, let's carry this on though. I'm very curious to see. Oh my god, because you're literally you cannot stop promotion. You cannot stop promotion. Let's say you played like here then. There's e3 check, and again, your knight is just nowhere. You're not in time. Wow. So letting the king get this close, Fabiano just didn't stand a chance. So it all went wrong at knight to a4 because of this move knight e4, and Hikaru calculated that he could just march his king all the way, get the king involved, and just start picking up pawns and allowing himself to promote. That's absolutely insane. But when you look at the time situation for Fabiano, I mean, it's no shame losing to Hikaru, especially when you're down this much time. It was very clear that Fabiano always wanted to play for something in the position, because the whole time he was calculating for so long early on. Let's actually just scroll back towards the opening, and let's just have a look at how the time situation goes. So Hikaru playing very quickly, as he always does in all time controls. Fabiano blitzing a lot of these moves, but you can already see the disparity after move 15. Fabiano down to 138, Hikaru down to 154. So the disparity was already building. I mean, 123, 150, it gets bigger and bigger. So the whole time it looked like Fabiano would have been the one to sort of work out the position and maybe look to find something, but in the end he just makes a slight mistake and Hikaru is always there. But guys, that is going to do it for our day one of Norway chess recap. Magnus and Hikaru picking up wins, taking that sole lead, both of those two. It's pretty iconic that those two are still doing it at the top level. Magnus beats Gukesh in a classical format, the most anticipated chess game, and arguably the best chess game of this year. But wow, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe, stay posted for further reviews of Norway chess. Get out of here.